I would argue that there's a level of guilt that I walk around with every day that I got the super mom and others didn't. And one person that didn't was my dad. And I love my grandma Esther, and by the way, I knew her mom, my great grandma Anya. There was a lot of negativity. And so the insanity of the difference of seeing my parents, and my dad gave me a ton of weapons, meaning he gave me a ton of good stuff. My mom's pretty competitive too, she likes to hide it, but my dad's really competitive. And work ethic. I mean, my dad came to this country and I basically didn't see him for the first 10 years. He established us, you know? But the surroundings is the whole ball game. Yeah, right. It's the whole ball, which is why with the level of guilt that I walk around, I believe that's another reason I'm so compelled to make content. I feel like, you know, yesterday I walked out of a meeting and this 15-year-old kid came up to me. He's like, Garyvee, love your stuff, selfie. And it was funny, like where my brain goes. I'm like, man, I don't know if that kid has got great situation at home or not great situation at home, but I'm really pumped that he watches my videos, not because I necessarily need it. Of course it feels nice, you're a human, like I'm a human, but fuck. Like there are so many people that don't have a positive influence and a decoder of the macro in their lives, and I'm so happy. You know, we demonize social media in society now for all of its, but all that social media is a mirror of society. Social media is empty. It's an empty vessel. It's not the news. The news programs. Social media is us. Social media is us. And so I'm so happy that, I mean, and I get this, by the way, I get it every day. Henrik, you know how you walk around this town, like, you know, as someone who is very affected by athletes' performance and like the joy it brings me in the escapism that sports is, you know how like, how many people ask, like I assume, you know, I just know this to be true, how many people thank you for that Stanley Cup run or your career? It feels nice, they're like, thank you, like it happens. Like to me, people saying thank you for like putting a video that changes the perspective, you're helping people. It's why we love music and sports. We get to escape our truth and get joy, right? For me, I help people, my content is focused, and by the way, there are many, many people out there like myself, and by the way, for everyone who's listening, if you're like, what do I want to do? What am I passionate about? If you're actually happy, just make videos about why. What's your routine? What do you do? But man, Henrik, surroundings is everything, and I would say if your surroundings aren't great, starting to limit your time with people that are negative is the practice. Just like I practice in the morning, brushing my teeth, I'm like, you're lucky today, it's a good day. And not like, again, I think sometimes people see this stuff and they think it's dorky, or like, I think it's the most real, I think it's like doing push-ups. And then the limiting of negativity. If you're watching the news constantly, you're gonna be upset. If you're, you know, if your
really affects you.
It really affects you. If your mother is negative, you can't, like, it's probably not ideal to cut your mother out of your life. And I know that a lot of people have asked their mother to go to therapy and they won't, I get that. But you don't need to talk to her 4 times a day either and listen to her vent. You're allowed to protect yourself and say to your mom, we're gonna do this once every 2 days now. You're allowed. You're in control of breaking the pattern. Everyone who's listening is in control, actually. Like I always tell people, complaining is like a funny game. Like the only people that listen to you complain is other complainers or people that have to because they're your loved ones, right? Like I think you're in control. You know, it's funny with, you know, talking about the part of the world you're from. I literally on stage say all the time, I'm like, what do you want to complain about? You don't like your job? You can quit. I understand that you have a mortgage in this, but you can live under less means. You can buy less clothes, you can take different transportation, you can not take a vacation that year. You know, like you can do something to fight for your happiness, because I mean it. You are allowed to move to Toronto.
Sure.
You're allowed. Like you're so lucky. My family wasn't. Russia was a jail. The USSR was a jail from 1917 to 1989. You weren't allowed to leave the country for vacation. So like we're fortunate, and I think that's how I think about it. So I hated school, and I couldn't wait to be an entrepreneur. And I was like, you know, probably since I was 11, I was like, when I'm 22, like that's how I thought. So I was so happy that first day of work, and basically I already knew I was gonna be successful. I was too talented. You know, unlike sports, this is why I hurt for some athletes, and I'm gonna actually ask you a question. Who was the most talented player coming up your life that got hurt by injuries that you know would have been an NHL superstar, but you remember them getting hurt or, so give it some thought. But unlike athletes, when you're a businessman and you've recognized you're extremely talented, again, unless you have a very serious health situation, you are going to be successful. Unlike, I'll use basketball because it pops to mind, Greg Oden, who was the #1 pick in the NBA, like would have been a very successful basketball player, but his knees did not hold up, right? Henrik, anybody come to mind?
Well, I just remember, not so much injuries, it was more their
mindset, yep, mind. Well, that happens all the time.
I remember at 13, 14, 15, a couple of guys, they were so talented. And I thought to myself, there's no way
they won't be in NHL.
Are not gonna play for the national team and the NHL.
Yeah.
And then 3 years later,
gone.
It was fast too. It was that,
well, that was that era, that's right.
You know,
it's that age.
You need to commit.
Yeah.
There's a couple of guys there that stands out, and I remember thinking back, oh wow, I really thought that guy would be like.
Well, by the way, that's why I use sports as an analogy for everything.
Yeah.
I tried to bring up one where he could just say, you know, obviously Henrik's a gracious man, he's not gonna call out those humans. I wanted him to give love to some guy who might hear this and say, fuck, I would have, you know, like the injury stopped him, it wasn't mind.
Right.
To Henrik's point, and I want everybody to listen to this, in sports, all of us that are close to it, I have a sports agency. We rep football players, UFC fighters, baseball. We almost got to hockey a couple years ago in a merger, but we'll get there eventually. Anyway, nonetheless, we all know if we're close to it, how many people don't succeed because of mind. In life, it's more hidden. In sports, this is why I love sports. It suffocates all of it. It's black and white. In life, you can make pretend that it wasn't you, but it was you. It was your mindset. You had the talent. You could have been a great CEO. You could have been one of the C-suite executives for Coca-Cola. You could have been a great engineer.
Do you ever read that book, George Lois, Great Advice for People Who Work Hard?
Mm-mm.
It's basically, now everybody says hard work beats talent. It's become like a tech, but that, I really believe that, right? Which is, you can make a brand as an entrepreneur around hard work and not have the deep depth of experience to take on.
Hard work is not subjective and it's not debatable.
That's right.
Like either you do 100 push-ups or you do 10. Right. Either you put in the 10 hours of hard work or you put in 6. Now, there are many people right now talking to us in their car or while they're running and they're like, yeah, but you gotta work smart, and they're right. Yeah. There are people that work hard can come in a lot of, just like you made that great point earlier, hard can come in different factors. There are a lot of people who work 13-hour days doing hard labor, sure. And it might not be the most strategic work that that person could be doing. But work ethic is a huge variable. It's a huge variable in life. I think we need to redefine success. You know, it's funny you asked me, was it money? It sure wasn't. And like that was weird to me for a while as a kid. I would sell baseball cards, I would work, but I would get the money and I would put it back into the business, right? Like I would get money with selling baseball cards, I would buy more baseball cards. Like I didn't want the cool jacket. I definitely didn't want Jordans because I was a Knicks fan, I would never wear them. You know, there was very few things I bought as a child. Like I didn't want stuff. Stuff is not interesting to me. I love when people are passionate about stuff. When I think about you, Henrik, from afar, especially with like, you know, even like watching you set up the aesthetics here, I pay attention to that stuff. I'm like, man, of course he likes fashion. Like he's visual, right? Like I think that's cool. I'm not. But I love, fancy cars. I'm always scared. Is that person buying a fancy car to close the gap on insecurity and they want to show people they made it? Or did they grow up passionate about the cars? They understand the horsepower. They, with wine for me, I will buy expensive wine. I don't do it for the flex. I do it because I spent my whole life learning about it. I'm interested in it. Sure. I'm curious. Last night I ordered a Quasita Creek, which is Washington State's best Cabernet, with my friend Craig. I was just curious how it tasted.